Alright, welcome back to JavaScript The Basics. In this lesson, we're going to take a deeper dive into functions. Last lesson, we looked at function syntax and a function call. In this lesson, we're going to look at function expressions, anonymous functions, and ifs. I know, strange word. At first, these differences are going to appear to be subtle, and the application not as clear. But as you move deeper into programming, it will be necessary to use them appropriately and understand the differences in what the JavaScript interpreter does with them. So for now, our task is to learn to identify each of these and learn how the JavaScript interpreter interacts with each one. Let's start off with a function expression. This is when you assign a function as a value to a variable. Assigning a function to a variable is when we put a function in a container or box and we label that box with the variable's name. So to get that data, we call the variable to get access to it. Let's look at our function from last lesson and draw a comparison. We have the function keyword, then the function name, and then we enter into the code block, which is a return statement giving us the string, "Good morning, neighbor." This is a function declaration. Function declarations are always named. Now, let's look at a function expression in comparison. As we look at the two, and look for the differences, we can see that a function expression isn't named. It can be, but because the function is stored in a variable, it isn't necessary to name the function to access it. In this case, it would be unnecessary code. This makes it what we call an anonymous function inside the variable. Now, if we just enter our variable into the console, we won't get the results of the function. Remember, a function doesn't run until it is called or invoked. Instead, we simply get the whole function returned to us. We need to invoke or call our variable, which then runs our function and returns its value. Here's the noticeable difference. This may take a while to sink in. The JavaScript interpreter always looks for variable and function keywords before going through and running each line of the script. It's okay if that's a little confusing. It's a bit complex and you don't need to have a full grasp at this point. Just be aware that the JavaScript interpreter looks for variables and function declarations before running its code. The big difference is that with the function declaration, you can call the function before you even declare it in your code. This is because the JavaScript interpreter finds this word function and its value and stores it before it starts to run each line of the code. So when that function is called, the JavaScript interpreter already knows about it. However, for the function expression, we don't find this. The JavaScript interpreter looks at the word var and hoists it up to the top. Hoist is a term and concept we will take a deeper look at in another video, so don't worry about that too much right now. But it lists this variable to the top and stores its value as undefined to the variable. So if we try to invoke or call the function expression at this point, we're going to error out that the function has not been defined. The interpreter doesn't know about it yet. It's a subtle difference to a new programmer's eyes and is going to take some time to sink in and to see the differences it can make. We will get some time together in the lab to practice this a few more times. Let's close out this lecture by looking at another thing we can do with functions. This is called the IFI. It stands for Immediately Invoked Function Expression. Let's look at a code sample. This looks just like our function expression, where we have the function stored within a variable. Ifs are also okay to make anonymous functions as well. Right now, we will store it in a function expression. What's new is this extra set of parentheses at the end of our function expression. This is what is going to call the function. It is where you put any arguments you might have. Then all of that is wrapped within another set of parentheses. Also, we can put the closing parentheses after the wrapped function, although best practice seems to have the closing set of parentheses wrapped up within the whole function. In our previous examples, we saw that the function had to be called for the code in the function to run in both instances. Ifs aren't waiting around to be called. Instead, they are executed once the interpreter comes across them. As the JavaScript interpreter comes across these two blocks of code, it interacts with them differently. For the function expression, without an IFI, the value stored inside the variable is the function whose code block has not yet ran. When it runs across a function expression with an IFI stored in the variable, It stores the result of the function. It stores the code that has ran. Again, the importance of this may be hard to spot now, but one benefit of immediately invoked function expressions is to ensure that variable names do not conflict with each other. That's a big deal in programming, and we'll have more on that later. Thanks for joining me in taking a first look at function expressions, anonymous functions, and ifs, and I'll see you in the lab for some hands-on experience.